In 2016, RuPaul's Drag Race All-Stars changed the rules forever. I will not be eliminating any queens this season.
Bitch, what?
Each week, the top 2 All-Stars will lip sync for their legacy. The winner of the lip sync will be given the power to eliminate one of the bottom queens. With great power comes great responsibility. It's a new decade, a new season with new rules. We're going to do eliminations a little differently this season. You'll never know what or who fate will throw your way.
Oh my god, my god, my god.
Reveal yourselves! The revolution starts now!
Welcome back to Forensics Faces. It's been a while since we had a new episode, and that is for obvious reasons. For all intents and purposes, the 2020 Forensics competitive season got cut short. While online tournaments allowed students to compete virtually without the ability to gather as teams and coaches, we didn't really have anything to talk about. Well, that changes today. In the absence of speech and debate, the best thing we've seen each week is one of our favorite reality competitions, RuPaul's Drag Race. Season 12 just wrapped its run, and now All Stars 5 is airing each week on VH1. If you really think about it, forensics and drag race competitions have nothing to do with each other, but who cares? It's an excuse to critique some sickening performances and stretch our judgmental muscles. So here's how it's going to work. Each week, I'll be joined by some extra special judges to rank and critique the performances of the drag queens from All Stars 5. Is this important work? No. Is this stupid? Absolutely. Is it fun? We hope so. And maybe a little bit of fun each week is what some of us need. I'd be remiss not to acknowledge that fun is a privilege right now in America. We are still in the middle of a global pandemic. Protests continue after the murders of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, and Breonna Taylor. There is serious work to be done, and I encourage everyone to get involved, to donate, and especially to vote. And let me be clear, at Forensics Faces, we believe Black Lives Matter. To quote the great Shea Coulee, our fight for justice isn't over, and our focus should remain on what's most important. Just remember to make time to heal and feed your soul, and All Stars 5, from what I've heard, is just what the doctor ordered. So we hope you'll laugh along with us, and maybe that can be a brief reprieve in the middle of so much turmoil. Welcome back to the podcast. My very first extra special judge is Malyssa Gabrielson.
Hello, hello, hello.
Like anybody thought she wasn't gonna be here. And our second extra special judge is one Mr. Elliott Fischer. Welcome back to the pod.
Hello, hello. Thank you for that lovely welcome.
Oh, you are always welcome. Well, that's not true. Sometimes you might not have anything to offer, but in this case, you do.
We're not even 2 full minutes in and you're already being shady.
This is the theme of the podcast. It is Shade Central, right?
To be fair, the shade is warranted because I was thinking about today the seasons of RuPaul's Drag Race that I have actually watched include seasons 1 through 6, which I just watched this past quarantine, All Stars 1, and season 12. So there is a huge recent gap in my RuPaul Drag Race watching. So, to say that I'm not a qualified judge is definitely very true. So,
well, this will be interesting though, because you're seeing some of these queens then for really the first time.
Correct. Yes. Yeah.
That'll be interesting. This will be interesting. So usually we start the episode with just a little back and forth, a little chit chat about what's going on in our lives and what's new. Is there any reason to do that?
It's like Groundhog Day. Every day is exactly the same as the previous one.
Yeah. That's nothing new. So we'll just skip right over that. I was curious, since we're doing a series now explicitly about Drag Race, whereas some previous episodes have been sort of implicitly about Drag Race. It's come up before. Have you guys ever thought of like what your drag names would be?
Yes.
Okay, Malyssa, tell us. You
Yeah.
got to reveal.
So I have one drag king and one drag queen name, both of them food related. If I were a drag queen, I would be Chelsea Buns, and all of my outfits would be very food themed, and my brassiere would always be some form of baked good. And then if I were a dude, a drag king, I would be Trey Bakes.
Yeah.
Also food themed, but I'd be like sexy chef, like giving you Bobby Flay vibes.
Okay.
You know, Jamie Oliver and whatnot.
All right.
Yeah, Trey Bakes is great. I love that one. That's great. That's amazing.
What about you, Elliott?
I came up with mine when I was living in Milwaukee, and mine would just be a mangling of two Milwaukee suburb names. And so I had always dreamed of being Waukesha Kudehi as my drag persona, which I realized outside of the Milwaukee metro area makes no sense whatsoever. But I thought it was pretty hilarious to be Waukesha Kudehi. It sounds both like elegant and trashy at exactly the same time.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is wonderful.
In the workroom, RuPaul would have a field day with that.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. Mine is like in progress. Like I've decided if I ever do drag, I want to combine my two grandma's names. So they were Phyllis and my grandma Florence, who's still alive. My grandma Phyllis passed away a long time ago. So I would be Flo, but spelled Phlo to combine their two names.
Ooh.
And I was like, oh my God, Heavy Flo would be perfect. Well, there's already a Heavy Flo. There's already a Heavy Flow drag queen. So I just kind of think like whatever drag family I would join, then I would just add their last name. So it'd be like Flo Mattel or Flo Hall. I'd want to pick a Wisconsin queen to join their family.
Okay.
Flo Mansfield.
You know what? I'm not going to say no. Not to, yeah, absolutely. Maybe. We'll see. So what are we doing? Let's review our rules, shall we? So we're watching All Stars 5. And
Yes.
some of this is subjective. Some of it we're going to come at it from different places, just like if you're judging a forensics tournament. Even though there's a written set of rules, we sometimes approach things differently. But I did write out some rules for you guys to follow, so hopefully you have followed them. So we are ranking all the way through for people who are really curious about the mechanics of this. In forensics, sometimes you rank 1 through 5, and this one we're ranking all the way through. We obviously have 3 judges whose scores we will combine to get our champion every week. We are really only judging the maxi challenge and the runway if there's a separate runway. So because those I think are the things in the show that the judges really take into consideration. They can't see what happens in the workroom. They can't see the rehearsals. So we're not really thinking about any of that either. We're really just looking at the maxi challenge. And every week, Ru does tell them what the challenge is. And so if we feel that one of the queens hasn't done the challenge as it was described to them, if they somehow just fail to meet the brief, as they would say in a British reality competition show, you can consider that in your critique, but you guys do not have the power to disqualify, okay?
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
just like judges at a forensics tournament, you can't disqualify a contestant. You can only raise your objection. The fact that they're listed in alphabetical order doesn't matter to the people who are listening at home. That doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. And I'm hoping you guys followed the honor system. I have not looked at how you guys ranked. I have not looked at your comments, so you will be revealing that to me as I will be revealing it to you. And then at the end of the episode, I'll open up the tabulation thing and see if we had any ties or just what our ranks were. So that's how we are proceeding throughout this.
I'm so
competition.
nervous about being the squirrely judge between the two of you.
I would like to point out that one of my alternative names for this series on the podcast was Squirrely Friends.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, and I guess, it's worth mentioning that, obviously we're going to spoil some parts of the competition for people who are listening at home. So if you haven't watched the first episode of RuPaul's Drag Race All Stars 5, and you care about not having it spoiled, go watch it and then listen to the podcast after. if you're one of those purists, as I am, like, I don't want to know anything about an episode before I watch it. I don't ever watch the previews. I don't ever watch the, like, first act that they post on YouTube. I want to go in fresh. If you're like me, stop now. So now we can
come back later.
Yeah, we can feel free to speak freely. Even though our ultimate judging, our ranking, our champion has nothing to do with what's on the television show.
No.
Yeah. So that does not have any bearing on what we did. In fact, I'm kind of curious, did you guys fill out your ballot before or after you watched the judges' critiques on the show?
Before.
Before.
I filled it out as they were performing, like I should.
Me too. Oh my God, we're all such forensics judges.
And rule followers.
Well, that wasn't... I didn't make that an official rule. Like, you could have watched the whole episode and then still judged. But yeah, I did it. And like, John was a good sport about it because I was like, okay, now I have to pause and finish filling out my ballot. And then I told him my rankings so that there was somebody who could verify that, like, I had done this before the judges could do it.
Yeah, I checked with my dog too. She was the other judge in the room. You know,
Okay. Yeah,
she was moderating me.
Yeah. For what it's worth, John did not agree with my ranking all the way through.
That's not surprising.
Like, this is a subjective thing. So I'm gonna throw it on over to RuPaul to explain what the challenge was.
Now, ladies, since 2017, the Work the World Tour has starred legends like Aquaria, Bob the Drag Queen, and Violet Chachki, just to name a few. For this week's Maxi Challenge, you'll be headlining in the Work the World Variety Extravaganza with an act showcasing your own charisma, uniqueness, nerve, and talent. And for those of you at home, you can go to RuPaul'sDragRace.com to find out when the tour is coming to your city. All stars, start your engines.
And may the best woman win.
Come on, Ricky.
See you later.
Bye, Ru. Bye, Ricky.
Bye, Ru. Bye, Ricky.
Yeah, if you don't know, that low voice towards the end is the one and only, somehow getting handsomer, Ricky Martin.
Thank you. He looks so good.
Okay, so I thought we would go in performance order and just talk about each queen, and then we can each do our own critique and reveal our rank. So Alexis Mateo is up first.
Boricua in the house to take the crown. Stickney, no? I'm Alexis Mateo from Season 3 and All Stars 1.
So I thought she had great energy, and it was very engaging. I did find her choice of outfit to be distracting at times. It did get in the way of her face during some of her movements and some of her choreography choices. And I went towards this as someone who has seen her perform in other seasons. So as a judge who might have judged her before, and I would have loved to have seen something that showed her growth as a queen, because it has been a few years since she performed on the show. So I would have loved something that really illustrated that. And I gave Alexis Mateo my 4.
Okay. Elliott, as a guest to the podcast, do you want to go second?
Oh yeah, sure. I thought I liked that it was a very upbeat performance. I thought it was great. I think it played to her strengths for sure. But I agree with Malyssa. I think at this point, if the purpose of All Stars is to kind of show that growth and development, I felt it was a little bit like, okay, I feel like this is something she's probably done countless times. So I agree. I want to see more from her. But I thought what she did still was pretty good. So I gave her the 2 out of all of them for me.
All right. I'll be honest. I didn't like this at all. I thought the movement was fine, but I thought she had no energy in her face whatsoever. And that her face was blocked often by the feathers of her costume, which meant we couldn't see her expressions. But when we could, when the camera really focused on her face, I felt like nothing was happening. So I didn't write it down, but I agree with your assessment. Like, this doesn't show a lot of growth. I gave her my 7.
Wow.
Yeah, I just really wasn't impressed. So next up in the lineup was Shea Coulee.
Black.
I'm Shea Coulee. I know y'all have missed me, but it's okay.
So Shea Coulee is one of my all-time favorite queens, and I was blown away by her entrance look. But I was kind of let down by her choice here. Her prop was occasionally very unsteady, and it was obviously affecting the amount of confidence she had in the movement that she was doing. And then it made her really unsteady in the actual choreography she was choosing. So then the pacing was really off, and I think that it's kind of obvious that she sort of threw that together. But it could have been really great with more practice, and I gave her a 5, and it broke my freaking heart. Because, like, she looked incredible, but the actual act that she was doing did not match that level.
You know what's interesting is, like, sometimes this happens in forensics judging too, when, like, you know the kid, you've seen the work they've done before, and you can just tell that, like, this was not your best performance, or like you haven't put the work in on this yet, and you have to approach it subjectively no matter how much you like the performer.
Yeah.
Elliott?
And I also think this is comparable to forensics in another way as well, because I thought, like, from a degree of difficulty thing, like, this was not easy for some, like, pole dancing is not easy for someone to do at all. So the fact that she took on that challenge, I was impressed by. I still think if you're going to do it, though, you better know what you're doing. And so, like, while I was impressed with her abilities, I think it could have been done so much better. And I don't think she should have felt compelled to be on the pole the whole time. I think she could have used it as an element of her performance and not the entire time being focused around that. So that was my biggest concern. A cool concept, but just not executed all that well. So she got my 4 out of the 10.
No. The thing, I agree with so much of what you guys said. The only thing for me that did stand out that I really like is, like, you can tell she is a consummate performer. Like, even when the pole got wobbly and, like, the physical movement wasn't as confident as you would like to see, her face was on. And even in stillness, even just leaning up against that pole and turning her head to the judges, like, you could tell, like, she's a performer, you know? So but all of that being said, I also gave her my 5. That's she's clearly middle of the pack according to all of the judges. All right, up third was Mayhem Miller.
I didn't come to crash the party. I came to end it.
I am Mayhem the Drama Miller from RuPaul's Drag Race Season 10.
Whew. I thought she had a very strong intro, leans right into her brand, what she's known for, and then immediately, like, the intense forensics judge connected into me, and I was like, oh my gosh, your enunciation and clarity is just not there. So perhaps cutting some of the lyrics that she was saying would give her more space to actually play with the timing, because I felt like I was just, like, chasing her words, and it really was distracting. And I gave her my 9, unfortunately. But it was a very deserving 9 in comparison to the other queens.
Yeah. Just because I just want to explain to the audience what they're hearing, because Rosalind has shifted position and we can now hear her bone.
Oh no!
So
it's
the
not
audience...
even a bone. It's a freaking water buffalo horn.
Oh, okay. Well, I wanted to bring it up just so that people didn't think it was Elliott chewing in the background. Since he's a new element, and then suddenly we could hear chewing. Like, I didn't want people to think he was, like, eating sunflower seeds or something in the middle of a podcast recording.
I'm sorry.
With this microphone that I got, like, it is very sensitive, and so it would be very believable that I could be chewing on some sunflower seeds and it would be picking that sound up for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are those a common Elliott Fischer snack? Is sunflower seeds?
No, but I have been known to eat them on occasion, and I have a bag actually in the cupboard right now. Actually.
Oh, well, there you go.
Well, there you go. It was a pretty decent guess then.
So with Mayhem, as well as with Shea Coulee, these were two queens that I had never had experience with before. So I don't really know like what Mayhem's brand is and what she's like as a performer. And so I was spending a lot of the time in that performance just kind of confused and bored with what was going on, because I had no idea like what is her thing, what are her strengths, and I don't feel like that showed any strengths or clear vision of what she is as a drag queen at all. So yeah, she was bottom of the pack for me. She was my 10 out of the 10.
Interesting. I'm just going to read exactly what I wrote because it really encapsulates it. The way you started the performance really captured my attention. It's a bold choice to start in silence. Unfortunately, after that, the performance got away from you. I had a hard time understanding your lyrics. She got my 8. Because I was intrigued. I was brought in right away at the start. I was like, ooh, I love this. Something different. But it went away. It went away.
Yeah.
All right. So up after Mayhem was Mariah Paris Balenciaga.
I'm Mariah Balenciaga, a.k.a. Mariah Paris, a.k.a. Mariah Successful, a.k.a. Miss Queen of All-Stars Season 5.
Oh, I struggled so much with this. So for me, I feel like she needed to relocate her main prop. I feel like if that whole setup had been like right in front of her and we were seeing her through that glass and then the painting, it would have felt better. But I feel like turning so much away from the audience really took away from the message. And also the music was mixed so loud over the spoken poetry that I couldn't necessarily appreciate it until the very end. And so it has so much potential, but it really needs to be like fine-tuned and like reeled back in towards like the actual core basis of the message. And so I struggle with this a lot, but I ended up giving her my 7.
Okay. I liked how different this was. I agree with Melyssa's concerns. I think there's some great potential here, and I think with some refinement, I think it could be really, really good. I just thought for me it was also just a nice change of pace, and to like take the risk to do something different and very serious was really cool. So she ended up getting a 3 from me just because I liked how unique and different it was, but I could easily justify moving her around in a whole bunch of different spots as well.
Yeah, I thought it was a powerful concept and for the most part executed well. I think that, the visuals of it worked for me, though I thought she was really limited by the fact that she had to be over those drop cloths. Like, it really stopped her from being able to use the stage as well as she could have, and it really just kind of made her hang out by that clear glass thing. So I gave her my 4.
Oh, I'm so squirrely. I hate this.
We haven't. No, I don't think so. I don't think we've been that far off. Really
I struggled a lot with it. I did. No. I really it's one of those things where like, as in forensics, where a kid like has a great message, you can tell they really care, but it lacks a whole like polish to it, and they're like trying to put too much stuff on it, like when they've got too much binder tech and it's too flashy. But it was really important and it was good.
Yeah. And I love a performance with a message. I'm all for that. I'm all for art having a message. 5th in the roster was Ms. Cracker.
And Craction! Ooh. Guess who's cracking the house, girl? My name is Miss Cracker. I am 35 pounds heavier than I was in season 10.
Shabbat shablam.
Shabbat shablam.
I loved this. I thought it was super, like, it felt like very authentically Ms. Cracker, while still being a sign of like growth for her from her original season where she wouldn't have normally wanted to get into this sort of thing. I thought the writing was excellent. All of the puns and the wordplay was great, and I feel like she had the audience just in the palm of her hand. Once you get RuPaul laughing, you've done something right. And so she got my 2. I love me a Cracker.
And I will say, like, my experience with Ms. Cracker has been her appearance on a couple of Bon Appetit videos where she has made stuff with Carla Lally Music. So I have loved her on those. And I have also watched Ruby with the Jew as well. So, like, that's my knowledge of Ms. Cracker. And I thought for her, this was a really super solid performance. I think I agree with Melissa. This felt very her and very authentic, for sure. Nice little callbacks to kind of what she had done before. I guess I would have liked it to be a little bit bigger. I think she could have gone a little bit further with some of this. And so she got a 5 from me.
Is that because she's like 5 feet tall and she can't get any bigger?
But I think this is one of those performances where I think she held her own for sure. But for some reason, like adding in the backup dancers on some of the other ones, like just made those a little bit flashier. And I'm not saying she had to use them, but if that was something that was available to you, because clearly it was, like, why not take advantage of that in this situation for her and, like, lean into that a little bit more?
You're one of those visual aid judges.
I'm actually not one of those visual aid judges.
So you have backup dancers. Why didn't you use them? You could have used the visual aid, but you didn't.
I just think it could have added a layer of humor to what she was doing, because I think the other queens like used them much more seriously as backup dancers, and like why didn't she like rope them in and just have them do goofy stuff with her? I thought that was a missed opportunity, I think, in this case.
Oh my gosh, all those backup dancers somersaulting with her. Okay, that would have gotten me. That somersault got me so good.
For me, I just think her humor is her strength, and she played to it so well. I would be entertained by her standing still and making faces, and she did so much more than that. So she got my 3.
Sweet.
Next up was Blair St. Clair.
Well, I do declare, Blair St. Clair's all grown up now. I'm Blair St. Clair from season 10, and I've finally gone through puberty. Well, almost.
I do declare, I do think that this performance showed some growth for her, but I was a little disappointed. I feel like, as someone who doesn't know a lot about singing, but knows a lot about how you're supposed to breathe, I feel like there were aspects where she just needed breath support so desperately, especially during that, like, la 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 la's part, and she's like, that part didn't work for me, and there was just a lack of intention in some of her body movements, like, she was trying to, like, dramatically throw that microphone stand back, and it just, like, she, like, fumbles it, and then it throws her off for a little bit, but she had great facial expressions, and she had very good use of eye contact. Part of that was probably all of the stuff she glued to her face around her eyes, but I ended up giving her a 6.
It was not my favorite. I just felt kind of awkward, especially like watching her sing in front of Ricky Martin, who is a singer. I was just like, oh, you poor sweet thing right now. Like, this has got to be rough. And so I just, it was an 8 for me. She just didn't do it, unfortunately.
Yeah, I wrote, sometimes less is more, but sometimes less is less. And to me, she just didn't do anything. Like, she just didn't do anything. She just stood there and, like, hugged the microphone and sang. And I applaud her for singing live.
What about that ponytail flip that was hecka awkward? Where she was like...
Yeah, the look was impeccable. But that's the thing, is, like, you throw in one trick after you've done nothing for the rest of your performance.
Is that a trick, though?
It's a try. It's like the kid who, like, does an entire prose piece just standing there reading the look, and then, like, in the last minute they try to do, like, a binder flip or something, and you're just like, what? Why did you try to do that? That didn't do anything. So yeah, she also got my 6 because her look was impeccable. And I do appreciate somebody singing live. So she got a couple points for me, a little higher than maybe she otherwise would have, just for actually singing. After Blair St. Clair, we got to revisit a season 1 queen, Angina.
My name is Angina. I'm from the very first season of RuPaul's Drag Race.
You look good.
The one that started this whole shenanigans.
Yes. What a disappointment this was for me. It was like, when she comes out on that little car, and I was like, yes, yes, yes. And then all steam is lost afterwards. It felt like something that I would have done at karaoke, just a bunch of RuPaul songs in a medley. But if potentially she had recut that around a little bit and actually put intention in her choreography. Also, and you can cut this, Kurt, if you want to, the fact that she was not wearing any form of panty underneath that last outfit, and it was just like Ken doll under there, was so distracting.
I'm not going to cut it. I wrote the same thing.
So yeah, I was super excited to like have a season 1 queen come back, like that's a long period of time to have been away from kind of all like from RuPaul's Drag Race in terms of a competition. So I was cool as to like what had changed and what had happened, and it was for me. Like I said, it was just when you can see every outfit reveal coming a mile away, it loses the impact when you know it's coming up. And so when it happens, you're just like, oh yeah, I knew that was going to happen. So I think she needed to refine what she was doing a whole lot more. It felt very like, I've practiced this 2 times. Let's hope this is good enough to go. And so she needs to work it out.
And what was your rank?
7.
Okay. I, like Malyssa, I appreciated the funny visual right at the top, and that was it. That's all I got for the rest of the performance. So for me, I just wrote, I'm not quite sure what I was supposed to see. There really wasn't anything there. And I did write, I think bloomers would have been smart. She got my 9. And it breaks my heart to do so, because Angina was my favorite in season 1. I desperately, desperately wanted her to go all the way and to be the first winner. And this was a disappointing comeback for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope she can do better. I'm looking forward to seeing what she has to offer, because I coming into it, I was rooting for Miss Angina. So
and I still am, because
for sure
I know this doesn't have any effect on her rank, but her in the workroom was just delicious, as we've been saying lately a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm very excited for the personality that she is going to bring.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
but this was not what made me excited.
No.
Nope.
No. After Angina was Barry.
I'm Derek Barry, and I'm from season 8. It's Derek. You know me.
Hey, Derek.
Oh, Derek.
Yeah.
I hated this. I was so uncomfortable. Just desperately uncomfortable. There needed to be more focus on pausing, and perhaps the time constraint was what really worked against this performance, like trying to fit as many impersonations in. But there's also not enough physical difference between the people that he was trying to portray.
Oh, yeah.
And it really made it difficult that he was dressed up like Britney Spears, but trying to be a bunch of other different people. Like, if he had come out as actual Derek Barry, it might have been a little bit easier, but I found that to be super distracting, and I gave Derek my 10. I found very few things like beneficial to watching this. I liked her bra though. I liked the chainmail. That was cool. That's all I got.
Like, and as Britney, she looked good, but that was about the extent of it. And I also feel, and this is kind of like, again, taking outside factors and bringing it into the judging of this performance, but if you're saying that you're trying to move away from Britney, then move away from Britney. Like, you can't say that at the same time look exactly like her. So that was my biggest beef, that like the impressions were not great. You're doing something you say you don't want to do anymore. Like, what's going on here, girl?
Yeah, I'm sorry, what rank did you give her?
Oh, she got my 9.
There wasn't much, like, the actual jokes as written, a couple of them were funny, but like, to me, I'm trying to think if I've ever seen an impressionist before say the name of the person they're impersonating before they do the impersonation in the voice of the person that they're trying to impersonate. It was so awkwardly bad, and just on a fundamental level seemed to fail for what she was trying to achieve. Like, it does an impersonation work if you can't tell who it is without them being named right before you do it. And other than Lady Bunny, I don't know that I would have been able to pick out who any of those people were. And even though I judged right away, I did go back to watch because I was curious about the timing thing, Malyssa, that you mentioned. I was like, is this just editing? Is this just like they just kept cutting to her next thing? No, they kept the camera on her for a few of those transitions where she literally, it was just like, impression, new impression. And it's like, it was so manic and frantic. It was so like freshman energy at their first tournament, where they just kept going, and it was like, okay, you got through it. Good for you. I also gave her my 10.
Do you think that she's done that before? Do you think she's done that performance before somewhere?
I know that she has impersonations after having watched the episode, because I always watch things like Pit Stop and the fashion photo review. Bob, the drag queen, was talking about how she does an incredible Bernie Sanders impression, apparently. And she went on to say that she did do that, but they cut it. But otherwise, I have never known her to do any impressions other than Britney Spears. So,
yeah, that's interesting. If they actually did cut some of her better ones.
Well, she said she was doing what, 20 or 12, like
15. I thought she said. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, too many.
So it was, yeah. For me, it failed. I hated it. I didn't like watching it. I felt bad the whole time.
Yes.
After Derek was Jujubee.
I'm Jujubee from season 2 of RuPaul's Drag Race and season 1 of All Stars. Third time's the charm.
Jujubee. I'm a big fan of Jujubee, but I made myself go through and like triple check my ranking afterwards to make sure that I wasn't being biased. But I loved this. It was so polished. She great facial expressions. And correct me if I'm wrong, but is the term for this a stand and deliver? Where you just stand in place at your microphone?
Yeah. A park and bark is sometimes what we call it in
park
theater.
And bark, there we go.
Yeah.
I knew it was something.
Yeah.
I loved it. I thought it was so her. She was in her real singing voice, and it was risky to do something emotional and not funny at all. Especially because Jujubee she's a very, very funny queen, but she decided to show her more serious side, and I really appreciated that. And so she walked away with my 1. I loved this.
I love me some Jujubee. Like, she is phenomenal, and I can't even say that like that didn't cloud my judgment. And I think for me, part of it too is just that it was so unexpected from her. Like, she is hilarious. She's funny all the time. And so to see this serious side, I was just like, oh dang, you probably should have saved this for later in the season, but like you brought it out. And so like it was very heartfelt, I thought, and just so emotional. And so she got my 1 as well. I loved it.
Oh my goodness. I wrote, this is how to sing live in a competition, and that all the theatricality I needed was in her face. She got my 2.
Yay.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I just want to point out one thing about just the confidence level of Jujubee is that she went out there in the exact same hair and makeup as she did her entrance look and just changed her dress, while everyone else was like a whole new thing. And she was like, I'm just going to put on a gown. That's all she had to do, was just put on a gown.
I mean, the judges don't know what you wore in your entrance.
I know.
Who cares? If they had to do that all in one day, if they had to walk in and perform same day, why would you change your hair and makeup?
But so many of them did, and Jujubee was like, no, I look great in this wig. Gray is good on me.
Sometimes you got to work smart instead of working hard.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
And she did.
Our final performer was probably the most surprising addition to All Stars 5 when it was announced, India Farah.
Yup. I was not expecting a lot from this, especially the way that it was edited, but everything she did was just super smart. Acknowledging that that's one of the only things that she's known for is being the queen who got picked up, and that drag is not a contact sport. That was stuck in my head afterwards, just that little bit. And it was obvious that she was super enjoying herself. I do feel like she gets a little bit overwhelmed by the sheer repetitiveness of that. The fact that she's repeating just those 2 lines, and I got a little tired of it towards the end, which made me really sad. And I love the energy of it, but I ended up giving her my 3. I feel like afterwards I was like, ooh, I'm really judgmental. But at the same time, I really think that the writing is what got her.
Don't worry about feeling judgmental, because I judged it way harsher than you did. And I was surprised, like, hearing that, like you said, with the editing of it and the build up to it, I was expecting a whole lot worse. For me, it just kind of felt very one note and uneven at the same time. Like, I appreciate the callback to, like, drag is not a contact sport, but when that's the only shtick of your song, like, it starts to lose its impact after a while. I also think she had, like, these moments of, like, crazy awesome energy, but then it was, like, a lot of just, like, walking back and forth as well. So I think she needed to figure out how to just, like, even out that performance. And I think whoever wrote this for her, if she wrote it, whatever, like, the drag is not a context where I think should have been used a little bit more judiciously for it to be really funny when it happened and when it came up in that song. So she got my 6.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I loved it. I thought it was smart. What you're calling uneven, I thought had levels. I liked that it wasn't all the same thing.
Okay.
I thought there were high energy moments, times when she was moving a lot, other times when she, like, let us take a breather from constant motion. She used her physicality, I think, better than any other queen in the competition. She was up and down and back and forth and all over that stage. She used her backup dancers really well. She got my 1.
Okay.
I was so impressed with what she brought to this as a total package. I thought she did great. Way better than I expected, too.
I also was not a big India Farah fan. Like, and so that probably was clouding my judgment as well. But
Malyssa will tell you, like, when this cast was announced, I was like, send Derek home first, then send India home. I don't need to see those two anymore. And then after that, I was like, whatever happens, happens. But I was like, those are 2 people I don't need to see again. So I was really, truly impressed with what she did. Do I think she's a contender for the rest of the competition? Not really. I think this is probably what she does well. Like, she does live performances. I think part of why she did so well is this is exactly what she probably does in a show 2 or 3 times on a Saturday night.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I also wonder now that the Derek India conflict is now gone, like, will she continue to get the attention that she had before, because we don't get to see that conflict happening?
Right.
Yeah, or she'll do the thing that happens with some All-Stars where they have a super strong talent show performance because they got to practice it and it's something they do in their normal life, and then any sort of improv or on the spot, anything that happens afterward just completely throws them for a loop. Did we have any other moments from the show that we very much enjoyed or delighted in?
I think one of the funniest moments happened during the entrances, and I think it was Jujubee that had said it, was that she felt like we were, like, it was like a printer cartridge or something like that, or like the toner was getting low as you walked, like, as you, like, panned across the workroom, like, going from very dark to very light. I thought it was just one of the funniest things ever. Like, it was so hilarious to me. So good.
I love Jujubee so much. Yeah. And she was excellent in the reading challenge. And I also love the reading challenge. Some people did so poorly, though. That can be a very uncomfortable place to be. But I'm very excited about all these older queens who I have held a flame for since having watched it. And other people, they've just sort of been almost like lore or like just something that people, like, they know about them, but they don't know them. Right. And so now we're getting to put them back on the front of the zeitgeist of drag, and I'm so excited.
I was also having a conversation with Kyle about this, because I feel like in the past, having only watched one All-Stars, not any of the other ones, that I feel like there's a perception out there that sometimes All-Stars is like design, or I shouldn't say designed, but it serves the purpose of being a redemption for someone who, quote unquote, should have won their season. So I was asking him, like, of this group of queens, are there any that were kind of perceived as being like, you should have won, and will this be their opportunity to, like, win the crown this time around? And so I'm anxious to see how, having had that conversation and those thoughts, if it continues to play out in All-Stars.
Yeah, I think Jujubee and definitely Shea Coulee are 2 people who qualify for that, because Jujubee has gotten close many a time, and Shea fell victim to the rose petals. So
true. All right, are you guys ready for us to reveal our rankings?
I am. I'm so nervous.
All right. We did have some ties, so some placings had to be broken on judges' preference.
Okay.
Here.
Hold on. Ooh.
Our 10th place finisher was Derek Barry.
Okay.
Don't clap for that. Don't clap for that.
I'm clapping that we agreed, and that's also who went home on the show. So we are excellent Drag Race judges.
Yes, that's true. In 9th place, Mayhem Miller.
Okay.
Also excellent.
We had our bottom two. In 8th place, Angina, who was the other third person in the bottom. 7th place, we had Blair St. Clair. In 6th place, we had Shea Coulee, broken on judges' preference. With 5th place, who was Mariah Balenciaga. In 4th place, Alexis Mateo, due strongly to the fact that we split that vote. 247. Then in 3rd place, broken on judges' preference, Ms. Cracker, who was tied with who ultimately got 2nd place, India Farah, and our champion of week 1 of RuPaul's Drag Race All-Stars 5 is Jujubee.
Yay!
I think we did pretty damn well.
I think so too.
And as Malyssa already mentioned, we picked the guy who got sent home. Is it funny? I still always refer to Derek Barry as a guy, even though it's a drag queen. So yeah, we did pretty well. We weren't that all over the place. I think if I'm looking at these results, Mariah and Alexis were really the two that we weren't all in the same place on. But other than that, we were pretty consistent. We were hanging out in the same neighborhood.
Good.
So we'll see.
It makes me feel a little relief.
We'll see if that continues as we continue to review all of these wonderful queens who are providing some excellent entertainment at a time when we just need to smile and laugh.
For sure.
And I hope this was fun for you guys. I hope it was fun for the listeners at home. I just want to remind everybody that if you want to join us in watching a Drag Race All-Stars 5, you can watch on VH1 Friday nights at 7 p.m. And then make sure to check out our episodes every Monday as we offer our rankings and review.
RuPaul's Drag Race, Star Show Engine, RuPaul's Drag Race, may the best woman win.
I can't think of a better way to end than that. So there we go.